So I'm Daniel Gallentine, and this is my capstone. We went to the Dominican Republic for a mission trip. So why did we choose this one in particular? It was along with the medical path, which is something I'm interested in. My mom has always been, she's always been kind of not pressuring me, but wanting me to pursue a mission trip. And so this was a really good combination of a spiritual journey along with a medical kind of like purpose. Like I said, to participate on a mission trip. Also, I've been learning Spanish here for the past 2 years, so this was a good opportunity to use the Spanish I've been learning. I haven't really had the courage to like try to use Spanish at like our local restaurant or anything, kind of like our teachers have been encouraging us to do. So this was a way that would kind of force me to do this because you can't like chicken out like you have to. Or another reason was a chance to share Jesus. I've never really done that before. Pretty much wherever I've lived has been in a Christ-filled atmosphere. I either have been homeschooled or gone to a Christian school my whole life, so I haven't had to worry about like kids not knowing who Jesus was. Where there, we definitely saw that. And also just to experience a different culture. My family loves traveling, so I've always, at least usually once a year, gone somewhere else that's been totally different than where I've grown up. So being able to see, I've never been to really Central or South America, and so this was a way to experience that. Some of my expectations or fears. I didn't think I would connect with the native people because, like I said, I've always been in a Christ-filled atmosphere, and they've never done that. I've always kind of lived in a upper middle class area, whereas these kids have lived in poverty their whole lives. Stuff like that I've always kind of like just taken for granted these kids have never once had. So I didn't think that they would kind of respect me as a person and kind of take the few things that I had to say like and respect that, I guess. Another fear, never been to a third world country, so I didn't know what that would be like. I didn't know if there would just be chaos on the streets, or I didn't know if it would be not as bad as everyone says it is, so I didn't really know what to expect there. Another fear was I had no medical experience. Everyone who was on the GHO trip either is like a scribe or a doctor's their profession, so it was me and Ben were the only two that weren't really knowledgeable about like the medical jargon and different etiquette and techniques and stuff. But Ben, his dad is a doctor, so he hears a lot of that at home, whereas my dad, he's a businessman, so literally whatever they were saying, I had pretty much no idea what they were talking about unless I'd learned it in like anatomy or whatever, which we didn't really go over much medical stuff in anatomy, so most of it was new to me. I was the youngest on the trip. Me and Ben were the two youngest kids on the trip. There was no other high schoolers. The next youngest person was this girl. She goes to UT. She's a scribe at the hospital there. And honestly, I didn't think I would like the trip just because of all these fears. I don't know. It sounds really selfish. I just didn't think I would enjoy it, but I did. So what did we do? The first thing that we did once we got there was we unpacked all the medical supplies that we had flown over there. We packed up, there's this kind of thing that everyone calls the pill party. They have all these different types of pills, whether it's like laxatives or painkillers or any pill or just multivitamins. And they would pour them all on these big tables in the hotel, and you would be tasked with a certain type, and you would put a certain amount in a baggie. And so just little stuff like that. We also had wheelchairs, we had crutches, stuff like that. So that's the first thing we did was we unpacked it, and then like in the pictures, I organized all the crutches. It was a huge mess. It was kind of everything was just thrown along the wall. So I organized all them, and the wheelchairs, we cut all the styrofoam off of them, and we reassembled them and folded them up and put them by the stairwell for when people actually needed them. So then after we did all the medical stuff, we flew in on a Sunday morning, and the church services in the Dominican, they go at night, so we got to experience an authentic Dominican church service. That was really new. That was pretty crazy. It's much more vocal than your local Tennessee Baptist service, so that was really cool. I'd never really experienced anything like that, so that was really cool. Once we actually got to the clinic, we would sit down, and each physician would have a translator, and they would have a younger kid that they would kind of mentor, so whether it be one of the scribes or me and Ben or one of the kids in medical school. And then once we had all kind of met and talked and whatever, we would start to take patients in, and slowly we would try to kind of figure out what was wrong with the patient, and then we would give them either medicine, or we would tell them how to fix what's going on, or stuff like that. And then after we were done talking with the patient in terms of like their medical needs, we would try to, if we could tell they kind of wanted to, we would really talk about Jesus. But a lot of times we would just pray with them, and after the prayer, if they wanted to learn more, we would certainly talk with them. But because there was so many people needing medical supplies, usually we would just pray with them, and if they want to hear more, they could. But most of the time, we would just pray with them, and then they would go on their way, and they would get the pills and stuff from the pharmacy. The younger kids, we would assist either physicians, like I was talking about. There was also, I had the opportunity to be with the dentists. That was really cool. I got to experience teeth getting yanked out of people. I got to see just kind of general cleaning, a bunch of different stuff. And there was also pharmacists that needed help. So kind of similar to what I was talking about with the pill party, we would go in and we would help find bags for people that needed them. Another thing we got to do was go door to door. Usually this was a much smaller group of people, like less than 10, and it would usually just be only a couple of younger kids with mostly physicians, and then there would usually be like 2 translators, or a local and a translator. And those were really cool. That's where you saw the most need. Those were the people that like couldn't go to the clinic. They were either, one of the girls had cerebral palsy, so she wasn't able to take her out of the house. The mother didn't even have a way of transporting her like safely. She just had like a general wheelchair, which isn't what you're supposed to have for someone with cerebral palsy. And so that was really cool. I'd never been in a house like that, and a lot of those houses have obviously no air conditioning. They have no electricity, they have no plumbing. It's nothing. It's just a room and a bed is pretty much where a lot of them spent most of their time. And also, I got to go to an orphanage, which that was not close to as bad as I thought it would be. I thought that the orphanage was going to be like horrible. All the kids were going to be malnourished and everything. But the orphanage was probably my favorite part of the trip, because the kids were so happy and they were just so like joyful to see new people and stuff like that. So that was kind of the basic things that we did. The personal impact it had on me, I realized how fortunate I am. This was kind of at the orphanage. This is one of the kids from the orphanage. The main thing that we would do there is we would give the kids fluoride for their teeth, give them a toothbrush and toothpaste, and a anti-parasite medicine. The medicine, it tasted like chalk. I tried one of them just to see what it was like. But the kids, they treated it like candy, and they as soon as you would give it to them, they would put it in their mouth and they'd chew it up, and you could tell that they kind of hated it, but they would still smile anyway, and that was awesome. The sticker that we would give them after the medicine, they'd show off to all their friends, and it was really cool. One of the kids, we gave it to him, and he like started smiling. He just smacked it on his forehead, and it was really funny. But stuff like that, it just helped me realize how fortunate I am. And if I was given a sticker, I would say thank you, but I wouldn't really care. But all these kids were showing off to the friends and everything, so I kind of realized how fortunate I am and how much I take for granted. Another thing that it impacted was my faith. This was mainly at the church services that we got to experience. I realized that my faith and a lot of other people's faith that I've been around is not that it's not authentic, but it's really dry, and it isn't as like dependent on Jesus as the people over there are. They don't know if they will get paid properly. They don't know that stuff. They just depend on God, and they know that He's in their hands. All the people at the church service, they were wearing their nicest clothes. All of the men were wearing suits, whereas me and Ben, we didn't know that. We were wearing shorts, and people were kind of, not angry, but they wished that people that had as much money as us would have been wearing our nicest stuff. So it made me realize that they kind of try to give God everything, and they depend on Him with everything, whereas in the United States, most people that I've been around at least don't necessarily do that. They have a lot more things that they can depend on. Whereas there, they just, if God doesn't provide for them, then they might go hungry that night, or they might not have money. So that was really crazy. It also impacted my passion for medicine. I realized that medicine is what I'm really called to do. I've always had an interest for it. Mainly in high school, I've been really interested in life sciences, like biology and anatomy. And so I knew that was something I was passionate about, but I knew that this was really what I was called for. When I could see the doctors after the first couple of days, I could see how they were trying to investigate and figure out what was wrong. But by a couple days, I was almost able to kind of do it in my own, on my head, and realize like where the doctors were trying to go. So I feel like it's something that I'm talented at, and it's something I'm also passionate about. So also, it impacted my confidence in using Spanish. I'm not going to lie, the first couple days I didn't really use any Spanish. I thought the kids were going to laugh at me, which they did, but you could tell that they were happy when you at least tried. And me and Ben, towards the last couple days, we were talking with most of the kids that we saw, and we were playing games with them and stuff, and that was really cool, being able to, even if it wasn't much, just kind of being able to impact them a little bit and realize that we're both people, even if we come from different places. So what would I change? I would definitely change where we stayed. We stayed in a five-star hotel in the Dominican. It was literally the nicest hotel in the whole city. The only people that stayed there were the top 1%. So it felt kind of bad to serve in almost the slums called Los Tres Brazos, but then go back right afterwards and go to a five-star hotel and chill in the pool and eat the food that they provided. So it didn't really feel fair, but it was really nice, but I just didn't think it was super authentic of what a mission trip should be. I wish that I could have done more door-to-door. There were like 3 trips, and I was only able to do one of them, and I really wish I would have been able to go door-to-door more. This is kind of nitpicky. We went in the hottest part of the summer, so it was extremely hot, and obviously, like I said, there was no air conditioning anywhere, which isn't something I'm accustomed to. So I wish that we maybe could have gone in a less extreme heat and humidity time, but I would be much more careful about parasites and safety. Going down, Dr. Crouch was telling me and Ben to be safe, and I was like, okay, sure. I wasn't trying to like disobey, but the general stuff that you have to be careful about there, you don't even think twice about. Like when you're washing off your toothbrush, you don't use the hotel water. You have to use bottled water and stuff like that just comes naturally once you're done brushing your teeth to go put it under the sink, but that's not what you do. Stuff like that. I remember the first door-to-door trip, there was a dog that was walking around, and I instinctively went over and petted it, but I realized that that's like a mangy dog that's been on the streets. So I definitely had to take a parasite medicine after that, and just stuff like that. I wish I would have been more careful, and I also wish I would have had a little bit more time with the doctors. I don't really know how this would have worked. I was thinking about it because pretty much every day was busy. It's not like there was a lot of free time when we were at the clinic. Maybe we could have, the duration of the trip could have been longer. Rather than 5 days of clinic, maybe done like 7. I think 10 might have been too long, like 10 business weeks. But I wish that maybe we could have done like a week and a half. That would have been really cool. But honestly, there wasn't that much I would change. I really enjoyed the trip. Continuing it, I definitely think I'll continue. Maybe going to Haiti, which is across the island, would be really cool. There's definitely more desperation in Haiti. But I would be totally fine with going back to the Dominican as well. And I just really love the spiritual aspect, kind of like I was talking about earlier, but it also has the purpose of medicine, which is something I'm passionate about. So I definitely think that GHO trips will continue for me.